So I'm Dutch. I'm a Dutch bro, and imagine my surprise when I saw this coffee shop across the street. So no, so thank you for making me feel at home. So the windmill is also a bit of a stereotype, but it's true. We have a lot of windmills in the Netherlands. So there are many more. Just 1,200 historic windmills survive. Many of them were built for water management. So we built dikes and then used the windmills to pump water out into the canals, creating new dry land. So most of the windmills are next to a canal. We have lots of canals. So if you ever need a canal, just we have some of the best canals. So I'm moving on. So I am a front-end developer, 30 years in counting. And my first official job title was webmaster. So this is a picture of me back in 1995, working on my very first website. And as you can see, I'm holding a power sword, which gives you the ability to write flawless HTML and defeat Skeletor, Lord of the JavaScripts. So if I counted correctly, this is the 13th time I'm giving a talk at Halfstack. So that bodes not very well for you. It's the 13th time. But I just love this conference because it's a mix of web development and side projects, people that use browser APIs in unexpected ways. But today, I'm not going to talk about browser APIs. I'm not going to talk about JavaScript. I'm not going to talk about JavaScript at all, no React, not Node, not even Dino, not TypeScript, no script at all, except for NoScript. The NoScript tag. For this talk, we're going to go back to basics, back in time. We're going to ask the important questions, like, can you nest NoScript tags? Can you style a NoScript tag? And what happens when you put a script tag inside of a NoScript tag? And we're going to talk about the one thing that HTML is, that JavaScript isn't. Whenever you make a mistake in JavaScript, something bad will happen. One typo and your build will fail, or worse, your browser will explode. But not HTML. Resilience against errors and mistakes is built into the fabric of HTML. You are allowed to make mistakes because HTML was intended to be used by non-professionals. Everybody can make a website. Just read the source code of another website, try it for yourself, and call yourself webmaster. That's what I did. That's how I learned to code. That's what I still do, except now I ask ChatGPT and use Copilot to solve my problems. And now I call myself a front-end developer, or when I feel really expensive, a front-end engineer. But in my heart, I'm still a webmaster. So this is Tim. Tim is a web developer. Back in the 80s, he was an engineer at CERN, you know, the particle acceleration thing in Switzerland. And he wanted to make publishing research and managing information easier, allowing scientists at CERN to collaborate with colleagues around the world. So he did what comes naturally to every engineer, come up with an overly complicated way to solve a simple problem. And let's build a worldwide network of connected information. A worldwide web of knowledge, if you will. It can't be too difficult, right? So he wrote a paper, Information Management, a Proposal. And his supervisor, Mike Sandel, thought it was interesting. He wrote this on top of his paper. Vague, but exciting. And that started the whole World Wide Web revolution. He created World Wide Web, which was the name of the very first browser. But it was not just a browser, it was also an editor. And he created the first website, not with the vaguest idea what would happen, well, what would lead to the web of today. But it lets everybody, anybody, publish information. And it already had the concept of resilience. So Sir Tim, the web developer, yes, that is his real title. That very first website is still here. It still works. So after more than 30 years, any browser can open this website and it will render it. And in my opinion, that is amazing. That is resilience. So if you look at a source code, it even looks like HTML. It's a bit weird. We can see some familiar tags like the body tag or H1 and P and A, but also we have a next ID tag and a title in a header tag. And where is the HTML tag? But it still works. There are no errors, the page just renders fine. Why does it still work? Because browsers will simply ignore tags that it does not recognize. And this quote is directly from that very first website. So a modern browser will see the next ID tag, which it really does not understand. And the browser will simply ignore the tag. Ignore is a bit of a strong word. The tag is turned into an element in the DOM. It's still there. It's still a next ID element, but it has no special meaning. It's just an element like a regular span. And in fact, this is why NoScript works. If your browser does not support scripting, it also does not support the NoScript element, NoScript tag. And it will ignore it and it will turn into a generic HTML element like a span, so the fallback content will be visible. And if your browser does support scripting, it also supports NoScript. And by support, I mean it will actively make sure nothing will happen with the content in the tag. It will not show up. So this is one of the basic principles of HTML, and it ensures forward and backwards compatibility. You could use a browser from 1995, such as Mosaic, and load the half-tag website, and it will work. Without styling, of course, because CSS doesn't exist yet. But still, you can read the text and click links, and this is what resilience means. And with this mechanism, we can do cool stuff, like bring back your favorite tags from the past, like the blink tag. So let's bring back the blink tag. In current browsers, the blink tag is just like any other unknown tag. It's basically a span. So the text will show up on the screen, but it isn't blinking. And we need to fix that. So we just add a little bit of CSS, and we can style our blink tag. An infinite animation between two keyframes, turning on and off visibility. This will actually work. We've brought back the blink tag. And I'm not going to demo this. Sorry. But we can do more. Why stop at the blink tag? We can do the same for the marquee tag. It's a little bit more difficult, but we can get this working. All we need to do is, we don't need to do anything. Marquee actually still works in all browsers. I didn't realize this. It's deprecated by the HTML5 spec. It isn't actually baseline, sorry, Marco. But you can actually still use it if you wanted to. Don't, please don't. So what is it that makes HTML so resilient? What makes it so flexible and error-friendly? And what makes it so special? All the magic happens between your HTML source files and the document object model, the DOM. So when the browser parses your HTML file, it uses a tokenizer and a tree builder, and those two build the DOM tree that your browser then renders. So your browser doesn't render the HTML, it renders the DOM. So let's look at the tokenizer first. It basically does nothing more than just analyze your HTML file character by character, and it tries to extract all the information it needs to build that DOM tree. So when we have a piece of HTML like this, it will start in an initial state, the data state, and then it sees a smaller than sign and thinks it might be a tag. So it goes to the tag open state, then it sees the letter A, and continues with the tag name state, adds letter A to the tag name, then sees a space, switches state again, and so on, character by character. And so now it has all the data about this tag. It knows the tag name, the tag attribute name, tag attribute value. It now has the token and emits that to the token, to the tree builder. There are 68 different states. Some are simple, some are a bit more complicated. But most importantly, when it encounters a parse error, it will not stop processing the file. It will not show an error message. It will switch to a different state and will just continue on. Together, all of these rules determine what HTML looks like. And in this case, it determines what the tag names are allowed to look like. It determines which characters are allowed and which are not. And just like the rest of HTML, the tokenizer is very forgiving. This is a tag. So this is the tag name. And this is allowed. It's not an HTML tag, but it's a tag. As long as the first character of the tag name is an ASCII letter, we're good. And this is not an upside down N, it's a U. So this is a tag. And to be fair, the equal sign is a parse error, but the rules specifically specify exactly what needs to happen in this case. The first equal sign becomes the attribute name. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is an accident waiting to happen. But this is why custom elements work. This is why Angular works. Yes, attributes can start with an asterisk. It's fine. Parentheses in an attribute name? No problem. It's why Vue works. An attribute that starts with an @ sign? No problem. But yeah, you can go too far. According to the HTML parser spec, this is a valid tag. Again, not an HTML tag, but it's a tag nonetheless. And this too. This is all. Wait. No, this is not right. This is a mistake. This is obviously not a tag. Let's see. Let's check the spec. The tag name contains a space. It switches to the before attribute name states. Oh yeah. This is not a space. For typographic reasons, there are many different spaces of different sizes. All of them are white space, but this is not Unicode code point 20. This is not a space, it's a figure space. So this is the tag name. Yeah. So if you really want to mess with your coworker, just run the script on his or her computer. It will replace all the spaces between the A and the href to a figure space in all HTML documents. The funny part is, in a code editor, you won't see the difference because all spaces are the same size. It's pretty. Don't use this, please. Don't. I'm not responsible. Don't use this. So can you break HTML? Can you put an emoji in a tag name or an attribute name and break HTML? Not really. This is this is allowed. Yes, emojis are just Unicode, and you can put any Unicode character in a tag name as long as it starts with a regular letter. You can style it, this no problem. Just sprinkle a little bit of CSS and voila. Of course, nobody seriously would want to use emojis in production, right? Anyone remember this? Now, I'm not saying nothing matters. All tags are equal and semantics are not important. Semantically, this is just as bad as this. These are not buttons. This is a button. It works as a button. You can tap to it, you can click it, and it's free. And all the tags we created are not HTML tags. They have no function. You can style them, but that's it. Functionality-wise, they are nothing more than a span. Now, the other reason why HTML is so resilient is the tree builder. It receives the tokens from the tokenizer and actually builds the DOM tree with it. It sounds easy, but it's really complicated. It's more complicated than it seems. So if we have a piece of HTML like this, a simple tag with some text in it, the tokenizer will produce 3 different tokens. The open tag, the character token, and a closing tag. And the tree builder will turn that into an HTML anchor element and a text node. It's simple so far. But that's not actually what happens when the tree builder receives those tokens. It does a lot more. It actually creates missing elements that are required for your HTML document. So let's see what happens. So the first token is a tag, an A tag open token, and that does not make sense in this context. So it creates the HTML element. Then it creates HTML head element. And it creates the HTML body element. And now the A tag open finally makes sense. So it creates it and then the text node. And we're done. Now we actually have a DOM that makes sense. And it is complete. It creates all the nodes that were missing. And that is why that very first HTML page still works. Even though we didn't have an HTML element, even without that head element, it will just work fine. It just recreates the missing elements. There is now an HTML and a head tag. And it moves the header tag to the body because that is where it's supposed to be nowadays. And it also fixes your mistakes. So if the tree builder encounters some tags that are not nested in the right way, it will try to make sense of it. For example, yeah, we don't want this to happen when we encounter an error like that. We don't want to go back to the days of XHTML, where every document had to be very strictly conforming to the spec. Otherwise, the browser would just give up and show an ugly error message. Given how popular XML was at the time, it's understandable that developers wanted to move to XML, but it goes against one of the core tenets of the web. The web is for humans, and humans make mistakes. Fortunately, with HTML5, browsers won't throw an error anymore. It will just render and in a very specific way defined by the spec. No interpretation differences between browsers. So quiz time. What style will the 3 be? Will the browser ignore the closing B tag? Or will it close the I tag? Or what? Who knows? Who wants to guess? I'm sorry? Move the B to the end. Okay. Yeah. So the 3 will be bold and italic. Yes. Okay. Any other opinions? Okay. Shall we just look? So before I'll go through this might come up in a pub quiz or something similar. So the first part is pretty straightforward. We get a B element and an I element with correct text. What happens now? So we get the closing B tag, and that's not what the tree builder expected. So it tries to figure out which tag it needs to close. It's pretty easy, it's this one. So it closes that one and goes back to the body tag, and then it sees another text token. Then it does something special. It maintains a list of active formatting elements. So the B tag is a formatting element, but we just closed that one, so it's no longer active. So that list only contains one. It's the I element. We never closed that one. So the text token not only creates the text node, it also creates a new element for that still active formatting element. So the 3 is italic. And that brings us back to the very first website created by Tim, web developer. If you validate that very first website, you'll get some errors. One reason is because the validator only goes back to version 2. And that very first website isn't even version 1. But there's also something else. There's an actual error in that very first document. And that just confirms to me that allowing errors is something that is built into the DNA of HTML. So do you see it? Right, here. There's a closing A tag without an opening tag. It's a simple mistake, but the browser won't care. And again, this is what makes HTML special. This is what makes HTML for everyone. You don't need a computer science degree to make a website. You are allowed to make mistakes. Everybody can make a website. Some will be bad, some will be good. It can be about Star Trek fan fiction, or React, or your cats. It can be about any random, unimportant subject, but it will be a website, and the browser will render it. And I think that is beautiful. I think that is what the web is about. It's not about consuming content, but also making content. It's about sharing knowledge. It's about making connections. It's about making the world smaller and working together. And I get a bit sad nowadays when almost nobody has a personal website anymore. And if we want to share knowledge, we all use commercial platforms like Facebook or X. Yeah, that is understandable. Web development has become too difficult for most people. For you and me, it isn't a problem. We are webmasters. We rule the web, we copy and paste, we experiment, and we have fun with tags and elements. But most people are dependent on platforms owned by madmen with super inflated egos or wannabe dictators. It's more than sad. It's kind of dangerous. And these are the kind of people that determine what you will see and what is acceptable. And for me, this hit like a brick. Left or right, this shouldn't be normalized and this shouldn't be acceptable. These social media platforms amplify the worst in people. And it feels like we're endlessly doom scrolling instead of sharing and inspiring people. And I think we should go back, I wish we would go back to those simpler times. So this photo feels like a very long time ago. It was during the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in London in 2012. a celebration of the birth of the web, 25 years ago then. And a lot has changed in the world, but the web should be for everybody. So if you don't have a website, make one. Experiment. It doesn't have to be good. Make content and share knowledge. Inspire and work together. On the web, there are no borders. www doesn't stand for wealthy Western web. The web isn't owned by a couple of oligarchs. The web is for everyone, including me. I have a website. Compared to some of the other websites, it's pretty rubbish. But it's my website. And it works in all browsers, and I share knowledge on it. So finally, let's go back to the NoScript tag. With what we learned now, we can answer the questions I asked in the beginning. What happens when you nest two NoScript tags? Let's see. So the second NoScript tag isn't a tag at all. Everything will be tagged until the browser encounters a closing NoScript tag. Everything including that second opening NoScript tag. And it will simply ignore the second, now lonely, closing NoScript tag. What happens when you try to style a NoScript tag? For example, set visibility to visible, or display to block, or opacity. Use bang important. Won't work. The contents of the NoScript tag is not hidden by CSS, which you can override. It's ignored in the renderer, and the NoScript tag will never be rendered. It is the only element that is defined to do absolutely nothing. And a script tag inside of a NoScript tag. Yeah, that's obviously not going to work, right? Why would you want to do that? Except, yeah. Oof. Thank you.